The translator's revenge. I knew they didn't read my emails. Hell, I could have slipped. By the way, I poisoned the coffee into the bottom of one of my Monday morning customs briefings, and no one would have noticed. But I kept writing them, flawless, translated, timely. 10 years of decoding Mandarin contracts, so thick with nuance they made haikus look like coloring books. And the thanks I got? Once, Barry from accounting called me, the girl who knows Kung Pao.
Charming.
The morning started like the last 1,000. I walked in with a half-warm latte and a full inbox. 2 of the Shanghai guys had sent over questions about a tariff clause involving bonded warehouse exceptions. Most folks here wouldn't know a bonded warehouse from a dryer sheet. But I parsed it, translated both directions, cleaned up the passive-aggressive tone from our side, and fired it back to China in under 45 minutes. No one said a word. Not thanks, not nice work, not even a goddamn thumbs-up emoji. The only sign I existed was the sticky note someone left on my keyboard. Make sure they don't delay that textile shipment again. THX. No name, no clue who they was. Classic. I handled it anyway. I guess what I'm saying is, I was invisible but essential. Like the O-ring on the Challenger. Like your ex's Netflix password. The kind of thing no one notices until it breaks. Speaking of things people forget, 95% of you listening right now haven't hit subscribe. No judgment, I get it. But if you want to help me hit my first ever 10,000 subs, maybe consider showing some love. I promise I won't start translating my grocery lists. Unless that's your thing. Back to the office. The vibe had shifted. The snack budget had mysteriously vanished, which meant no more kettle chips or stale biscotti. Janice from HR was working remotely indefinitely after a nervous breakdown nobody talked about. And the CEO stopped wearing socks, which I've come to recognize as a sign of corporate apocalypse. Then there were the whispers. The shut doors. One VP, red-faced and pacing. Another pulling up legal documents on dual monitors like he was studying for the bar exam. People were getting laid off. Not me, I thought. They need me. I'm the Mandarin firewall. Cultural buffer. The polite translator who once saved a $2.3 million deal by diplomatically explaining that the phrase our COO had used, translated literally, meant, "We piss on your ancestors." But here's the thing about hubris. It smells just like confidence until it curdles. And mine was starting to sour. Little signs appeared. My ID badge stopped working in the executive wing. The IT guy who used to say, "Yo," now gave me nods that looked like pity. And Barry from accounting, Mr. Kung Pao himself, started avoiding eye contact altogether. One afternoon, I caught a glimpse of a printed list left in the copier tray, a spreadsheet with red columns. One tab titled Phase 2. My name wasn't on Phase 1, but Phase 2? Top of the list. Still, I kept translating. I kept smoothing fires. Customs almost seized a misdeclared batch of lithium battery cases. I fixed it. A Shanghai liaison threatened to escalate a misworded SLA clause. I rewrote it with a smile. The team didn't thank me, but they didn't stop me either. Then came the meeting invite. Strategic Workforce Optimization Touchpoint. I laughed out loud. Like firing people needed a euphemism that bad. But I knew the jig was up. Still, part of me hoped it wasn't. Maybe they wanted to promote me. Maybe they'd finally seen how irreplaceable I was. Narrator voice. They hadn't. The axe falls. The conference room smelled like lemon-scented bleach and fear. You know that fake clean smell, like a bathroom that's hiding something. They'd set out a pitcher of water and 3 paper cups, as if hydration might soften the blow of being gutted alive. 2 people waited inside, Todd from HR, who once bragged about his chili cook-off plaque, and Melanie from legal, who smiled like she practiced grief in the mirror. No eye contact, just the shuffle of papers and the distinct, syrupy drone of corporate mercy. "Thanks for coming in, Claire," Todd began, already sweating through his pastel polo. "We want to acknowledge your 10 years of service with heartfelt appreciation." The word heartfelt hit me like a bird into glass. My stomach curled. "We've decided to restructure parts of the operations workflow with modern efficiencies. In short, your position has been eliminated." My brain did that thing where sound stretches, like someone's turning the world down through a drain pipe. Todd kept talking, Something about pivoting, something about global strategy, something about machine translation capabilities evolving faster than expected. "We have AI now," Melanie added, like she was announcing the arrival of a messiah. It's honestly remarkable what Google Translate can do these days. I didn't blink, didn't flinch. I just stared at the place where her lipstick bled into the corners of her mouth. There was a printout in front of her, my name on it, signed by someone I'd trained. A release agreement. No severance. Just, your final paycheck will include unused vacation hours, and please return all company property before 3 p.m. You have an hour to collect your things. She said it while reaching for the next folder like this was jury duty, and I was just another Tuesday. I nodded just once. No words. What could I say? Actually, Google Translate rendered your last contract offer as, "We're harvesting your organs now." Hope that's cool. No scene. No drama. I wasn't going to give them a soundbite to comfort their guilt or prove their point. I walked out as quiet as I came in. Just a purse, a backup hard drive, a half-dead succulent from my desk. Barry from accounting pretended to be on the phone when I passed him. Someone at reception muttered shame under their breath, but I didn't stop, didn't look back. I made it to the parking garage before the shaking started. Rage and humiliation like two pit bulls in my chest, clawing at each other to see which would break my ribs first. I sat in my car for 43 minutes, engine off, radio on. NPR was interviewing a woman who knitted sweaters for rescue turtles. I listened to the whole segment like it mattered, like maybe if I stayed still long enough, the absurdity would pass. But it didn't. They replaced me with a browser extension. A browser extension. 10 years of cultural nuance, of knowing that in Mandarin, maybe can mean absolutely not, or I'm trying to be polite, or I'm waiting for a bribe. Reduced to AI confidence scores and copy-pasted nonsense. And yet I didn't cry. Not yet. I thought about sending them a message. Not a dramatic manifesto or anything. Just a short, professional heads up. Hey, by the way, your AI just told our Shanghai partner that their legal terms are nonsensical dog urine. Might want to double-check that. But every time I hovered over the compose button, my finger twitched like it knew better. Why save the people who thought my job could be replaced by a website that still thinks long pork is a valid menu item? Instead, I clean my apartment. Not in the healthy New Beginnings way. More like a passive-aggressive purge. I vacuumed the ceiling. I alphabetized my spice rack. I deep-cleaned the grout with a toothbrush and a playlist called Corporate Apologies in minor key. Then I stared at the wall. It's funny what your brain does after betrayal. It doesn't scream. It simmers. One part of you wants to storm the gates, slap their laptop shut, and shout, "You'll be lost without me." The other part? It whispers, maybe they're right. Maybe you were just a line item. That whisper lingered longer than I'd like to admit. A week crawled by. I didn't sleep right. My body was still on office clock, waking at 6:15, checking emails I no longer received. I'd open my inbox and reflexively scan for Mandarin subject lines, only to be greeted by spam and pity offers from resume sites. Then came Zoe, my old friend from college. She FaceTimed me mid-lunch, catching me eating peanut butter from a spoon in my pajamas like a raccoon who'd lost visitation rights. "You look great," she said, lying. I gave her a dead-eyed shrug. "They replaced me with Google." She winced. "Jesus, I thought you were exaggerating when you texted that." "Nope." Todd said it like he was announcing a new Roomba. Zoe leaned in like I was a glitchy Zoom feed. "Claire, listen to me. You do not owe them anything. You hear me? You warned them for years that machine translation could tank a deal. You saved their asses more times than I can count. Let them drown. You don't owe them floaties." She had a point, but every time I closed my laptop, I opened my phone, checked LinkedIn, checked the company site. And sure enough, little signs started to bleed through. New blog post titled "Bridging Cultures with AI Efficiency" was riddled with awkward phrasing. One sentence literally said, "We smell forward to mutual understanding." I snorted so hard I almost dropped my phone. The kicker came 3 days later when I saw it, a cryptic LinkedIn update from Lumei, one of the senior reps from Shanghai I used to correspond with daily. A partner's tone speaks louder than their terms. Disrespect is best replied to in silence. No hashtags, no emojis, just that. And I knew it was about us. Well, them now. That one post haunted me. I could hear her voice saying it, calm, soft, the way she once told me that sending a gift too early before a contract was signed could be seen as bribery. She understood timing, silence, patience. My former employers? They were a marching band in a minefield. It was a Tuesday when the message came in, 2:17 a.m. A WhatsApp ping from an old colleague I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. Jenna, former project manager, master of dry humor and emergency donut runs. Claire, you didn't hear this from me, but things are getting real weird. Shanghai's pissed. No pleasantries. No context. Just that. I sat up in bed, like someone lit a fire under my ribcage. Define pissed, I typed back. Like, someone from legal sent over what looked like a contract correction. Execs used Google Translate again. Replied with, "We reject your misunderstanding and suggest you meditate on our authority." I blinked. Read it again. It was worse the second time. Meditate on our authority? It wasn't just a cultural misstep. It was a diplomatic landmine with a lit fuse. That's not a mistranslation, I typed. That's an act of war in a business suit. Exactly. Lu Mei hasn't responded since. Radio silence. Logistics is backed up in customs. And Todd, yes, Chili Todd, had the audacity to say, she's probably on holiday. Those people take October off, right? I wanted to laugh. I really did. But the sound caught in my throat and died there, because I knew what silence from Lu Mei meant. It wasn't apathy. It was calculation. A pause before the blade. They'd screwed up, deeply and worse. They thought it was just a hiccup. Apparently Melanie from legal had called the original Mandarin message standard noise. Just a formality. They always bark when contracts renew, she'd said in a meeting. Then greenlit a reply with no second pass, no translator, and certainly no cultural awareness. The original message, because I begged Jenna to forward me a screenshot, used the term breach of mutual respect. That wasn't standard. That was code. And any idiot who'd worked with the Shanghai office for more than 5 minutes knew it. Mutual respect was sacred to them. The phrase sat at the core of nearly every deal we'd ever closed. It was in our onboarding documentation. It was printed in Mandarin calligraphy on a plaque outside the Shanghai branch's boardroom. Screwing with that was like insulting someone's ancestors to their face. And the reply? Oh, the reply. I ran it back through a native speaker I knew from my freelancing circle just to be sure. Their interpretation? We reject your feelings. Know your place. It felt like watching a slow-motion train wreck you tried to stop years ago. I could almost hear the screech of metal, the rising smoke of arrogance combusting into real damage. There was vindication, yes. Some twisted satisfaction in knowing I hadn't been paranoid, that all the emails I'd drafted with surgical precision weren't overkill, but lifelines. But the dread came heavier, because I knew what came next. They wouldn't just lose shipments, they'd lose face. And in Chinese business, losing face is like bleeding out in public. Deals unravel. Calls go unanswered. Partnerships freeze without warning. And my name, still somewhere in their old files, probably flagged as non-essential. But now I was the one watching them get translated badly. The first sign was a silence so loud it made the executive floor itchy. No replies. No updates. No shipping confirmations from Shanghai. Just a gaping inbox where confirmation emails should have landed. Then came the official halt. Jenna sent me the internal memo, slapped with a sterile subject line urgent. Temporary partner hold. Shanghai division. It read like a drunk trying to explain a car crash he swore wasn't his fault. Due to unforeseen procedural discrepancies, our Shanghai logistics partner has temporarily paused outbound shipments. We are actively investigating potential IT misrouting and customs misinterpretations. IT misrouting was a cute way of saying, we insulted the only people keeping our international pipeline alive. Inside, they were scrambling like pigeons in a fireworks store. The execs called emergency huddles. Barry from accounting was seen sweat-drenched, arguing about invoice freezes with a Bluetooth headset that hadn't worked since 2020. Todd, The chilly prince of HR apparently tried to log into our old translation software and got locked out after 3 failed guesses. His password was Mandarin 123. They blamed IT. They blamed customs. They blamed a phantom glitch in their email security protocols. One guy even tried to float the idea that Mercury was in retrograde. Meanwhile, I got the email. Subject line: clarification request, historical vendor liaison. Body text: Hi Claire, hope you're doing well. We're reaching out in regard to some confusion involving previous communications with a contact based in Shanghai. Would you be willing to assist in clarifying a few details related to your former role, just to help smooth things over? Appreciate your discretion. Melanie, legal. It was wrapped in artificial honey, sweet but plastic. Not an apology, not even an acknowledgement. Just a vague reach around that screamed, we don't want to admit we need you, but we are absolutely in the middle of a flaming shitstorm and you are the only person who knows where the extinguisher is. I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes. No anger, no joy, just stillness, like watching a bonfire from the comfort of your living room window. Then I replied, Hi Melanie, thank you for the note. As you know, my NDA prevents me from discussing any prior confidential correspondence. I trust the team will find an appropriate solution. Best, Claire. And I hit send. No exclamation points, no smiley faces. Just the same ice they handed me 2 weeks ago, served back in a glass they didn't realize I still held. It was subtle, but I felt the axis shift. That quiet power hum. Like when you realize the room's no longer ignoring you, they're watching you, hoping you'll blink first. I didn't. And for the first time in 10 years, they were the ones in the dark, guessing at the cultural meaning behind my silence. The interview wasn't even an interview, not really. It felt more like a rescue mission in a business suit. I showed up expecting the usual. 2 firm handshakes, HR buzzwords, some guy named Brad asking if I play ping pong. Instead, I was ushered into a sunlit office where the VP of International Operations, real title, not fluff, stood up and said, Claire, I've heard a lot about you. All good. No fake smile.
No condescensión.
Just that sentence, and a chair that didn't squeak when I sat down. A miracle, frankly. Their firm, Crescent Freight, was everything my old company pretended to be: modern, multinational, and not run by people who think for Chinese characters means probably a food allergy. They didn't want a translator. They wanted a bridge. Someone who didn't just speak Mandarin, but understood how to decode the silences between yes and maybe. We're not looking for quick fixes, the VP said, sliding over a folder thicker than my old HR manual. We're building long-term trust across the Pacific. We need someone who knows when not to speak. God, that hit different. He didn't even mention AI. Nobody brought up Google Translate. Nobody implied that my decade of experience could be summed up with a chatbot and a LinkedIn endorsement. They asked me about honorifics, about gifting etiquette, about the difference between direct and indirect apologies in Chinese business culture. It was like being pulled from the shallow end and asked if I wanted to swim the channel. I left that room feeling taller. Not better, bigger. Like I'd unfolded. Back at home, I opened my laptop just for fun. Checked the news. My old company had issued a vague press release about supply chain recalibration. That's PR code for, we pissed off the wrong people, and now we're Googling how tariffs work. Jenna texted me 2 hours later. They're spiraling. VP of Ops just quit. Well, step down, but he was definitely crying in the stairwell. Rumor is Shanghai's threatening to bring in lawyers. Oh, and Melanie keeps calling it a cultural hiccup. I typed back, tell Melanie it's a hemorrhage. And then I got the email, not from Jenna, not from my new employer, from Lu Mei. It was short, just 2 lines. Your insight has always been rare. Crescent's tone is refreshing. I reread it 5 times. It wasn't confirmation. It wasn't a contract. But it was a whisper, a signal. Shanghai was talking, not to them, to us.
For the first time in weeks, I let myself laugh.
Not out loud, just that private, satisfied exhale that lives between the lungs and the soul. The kind you release when you realize the tables haven't just turned, they've flipped. The offer came 3 days after the interview. Full-time, international liaison, with a salary that didn't just reflect my worth, it apologized for how underpaid I'd been. I signed before the ink dried. Day one wasn't onboarding videos or awkward small talk in the break room. It was war strategy, elegant diplomatic war. Crescent Freight had already begun outlining a recovery proposal for the Shanghai partnership, and they handed me the reins. "We want to rebuild trust," the VP said, "but we won't grovel. We'll speak their language, literally and metaphorically. We trust your lead." It felt like being handed a violin after years of being told to play the triangle. I rewrote the proposal from the ground up, scrapped every trace of American business bluster, stripped the jargon, focused on clarity, humility, and long-term vision. We translated every phrase with care, not just for accuracy, but for tone, posture, and rhythm. The final packet included a handwritten letter in Mandarin, penned by our CEO himself after 2 hours of pronunciation coaching, and a 6-page guide I wrote on what not to say. We enclosed it in a custom folder, wrapped in silk patterned with plum blossoms, a quiet nod to Shanghai's symbol of perseverance. Then, to seal it, a live interpreter was flown in, someone I personally vetted, fluent in Mandarin and body language. Meanwhile, my old company fired off another machine-translated gem, this time with the subject line, "Rekindle commercial intimacy. Necessary prompt action required." I wish I were joking. Inside, they referred to the prior misunderstanding as a miscalculated humor, attempted to schedule a synchronistic table meet for the following week, and addressed the Shanghai partner as business brotherhood entity. That email hit the Shanghai inbox the same morning our handwritten letter was delivered by courier in person, with the interpreter bowing, not shaking hands, at the entrance. Lume responded to them exactly once. She sent back a message with no salutation and no closing line. "Your tone continues to wound. Declined further dialogue at this time." And that was it. No explanation. No, we'll be in touch. Just silence sharpened into a blade. Back at Crescent, the VP read the message aloud, then looked over at me. "You think they know?" I shrugged. "They're learning, just not fast enough." He smiled like he'd just watched an enemy army walk off a cliff. Strategic satisfaction. Victory, but not loud, not cruel. Just earned. The termination letter dropped like a guillotine. Official. Stamped. Delivered in hard copy to the old firm's headquarters by international courier. Signature required. A single-page document, written in Mandarin, with an English translation clipped behind it like an afterthought. That's how you know they meant it, when the language of business gets demoted to the back seat. The title at the top, "Termination of Strategic Commercial Cooperation, effective immediately." No room for spin. No, we'll circle back. No hand-holding through the wreckage. The Shanghai partner didn't just sever the contract, they erased it like it was a stain. The letter outlined 3 major violations: breach of communication protocol, disrespectful engagement, and failure to maintain mutual cultural obligations. It was like watching a stone statue deliver a slap. Crescent received a blind copy. Lume made sure of that. My old company lost $18 million in shipping contracts overnight. Accounts frozen. Warehouses locked down. An entire fourth-quarter forecast torched in one morning. Rumors hit the press, logistics dispute, partner withdrawal, cultural tensions, but insiders knew. Jenna sent me a screenshot of the Slack meltdown. Executives pinging each other at 3 a.m., blaming customs officers, interns, each other. And then came the desperation. I was at my desk, a new desk, reviewing Crescent's Next East Asia onboarding guide when I saw it. A certified letter delivered to my apartment. Return address, my old employer. Inside, 2 pages of dense legalese, barely veiled threats dressed up as concerns. They cited my NDA, claimed overlap of sensitive trade language, said they were monitoring for potential breaches resulting in competitive harm. That last part was bolded. I read it 3 times, set it down, and poured myself tea. They didn't understand, or maybe they did, and that's what scared them. I hadn't violated a damn thing. My NDA was airtight for them. Not for Crescent, not for me building something better. The clause didn't cover future strategy, didn't mention cultural expertise, didn't touch public relations or contract etiquette because they'd never valued those things enough to imagine anyone could weaponize them. I didn't respond. Let my lawyer do it. Her reply was surgical. Ms. Lai remains in full compliance with all contractual obligations. The application of the NDA does not extend to general language services, cultural consultation, or independent client engagement. We trust this clarifies any confusion. Kindly cease future intimidation attempts. No drama. No scorched earth. Just the exact shade of composed dismissal they used on me 2 months ago, replayed in reverse. Todd, I heard, was demoted. Melanie, on indefinite leave. Barry from accounting tendered his resignation with an emoji-laden farewell that read like a hostage note. But me? I showed up to work the next morning in a blazer that actually fit, carrying a handwritten thank you note from Lu Mei in my bag. She'd written, "You once translated our silence. Now we trust your voice." Triumph didn't come with fireworks, it came with stillness. Their noise, their flailing, it couldn't touch me now. Because the one thing they'd never accounted for was the power. It happened on a Wednesday, quiet as snowfall. Crescent's CEO stepped into the main conference room with a smile that didn't need translation. Behind him, Lu Mei entered, not virtually, not through some scheduled Zoom dance, but in person. Black blazer, calm grace. The kind of entrance that makes a room inhale and forget to exhale. She shook hands, bowed once just slightly, then sat beside me as if she'd always been part of the team. The agreement was signed that afternoon. 10-year strategic partnership, renewable. Direct supply lines. Joint advisory council. Cultural oversight board led by yours truly. Crescent didn't just secure a deal, they earned a seat at the adult table. And they knew it. After the handshakes and polite applause, Lu Mei passed me a folded envelope with a faint watermark. Handwritten. Mandarin on one side, English on the other. No signature. Some bridges should be burned. Thank you for the fire. I didn't smile, not right away. I just pressed my thumb to the corner like anchoring a memory in ink. That night, I heard the news from Jenna. My old company had filed for restructuring. The term they used was lean refocus, but the leaks told the truth. International partnerships collapsed. Warehouses shuttered. Layoffs in waves. Their legal team quietly backed off the NDA nonsense. No public apology, no admission. Just silence. I didn't gloat. No rage victory dance. No told you so tour. Instead, I marked the moment by booking a one-way flight to Taipei. Crescent was expanding. Lu Mei suggested I lead the regional training. I said yes before she finished the sentence. On the plane, I thought about the day they let me go. The brittle tone. Paper cups of stale water. The room full of people who didn't see me until I was already gone. Now, I sit in boardrooms where my voice lands first. I sign documents that never need a second pass. I teach entire departments the power of knowing when silence speaks louder than language. There's no bitterness left, just clarity. Because revenge isn't the victory being needed, truly needed, is. And being unforgettable? That's the fire no one can put out.